Imagine a world where the streets are filled with corruption, violence, and every heart is consumed by evil. A world that has gone so astray that the Creator himself regrets making mankind. In the midst of all this, one man is chosen. One man's faith will determine the fate of humanity. This is the story of Noah, the ark, and the promise that changed everything. In a time of great destruction, when all hope seemed lost, God made a way for a new beginning. A flood, unlike any the earth had seen before, was coming. But there was one man who heard God's voice and trusted his plan. And through his obedience, the future of all living things was saved. The context of Noah's story: the wickedness of the world. The world was a place of chaos. People had turned away from God, consumed by sin and violence. The earth was filled with wickedness, and every thought of mankind was evil all the time. God looked down on the earth and saw nothing but corruption. His heart was grieved, and he knew that he had to act. God made a decision that would change everything. He would wipe mankind from the face of the earth. But in the midst of this, there was one man who stood out: Noah. He was a man who walked with God, a man who was righteous in his generation. Noah found favor with God. God's instructions to Noah. God spoke to Noah, and he gave him a command so strange, so immense, it would change the course of history. He told Noah to build an ark, a massive boat that would hold Noah, his family, and pairs of every animal in the world. The rain was coming, and it would flood the earth, wiping out everything. Imagine the weight of those words. Noah had never seen a flood, never built a boat that big, yet he obeyed. Noah didn't question, didn't hesitate. He trusted God's plan, even when it seemed impossible. The flood begins. As Noah and his family entered the ark, the skies darkened, and the first raindrops began to fall. At first, it seemed like just a storm, but soon the heavens opened up, and the floodgates of the deep were unleashed. It rained for 40 days and 40 nights. The earth was completely submerged. The world Noah knew was vanishing before his eyes. The flood was a judgment, but also a salvation for those who obeyed. The ark became the only refuge from the storm, a symbol of God's mercy. For everyone else, there was no escape. The waters recede, and God's covenant. The end of the flood. Genesis 8:1-14. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The water remained high. Noah sent a raven to find dry land, but it flew back. Then he sent a dove, and after a long wait, it returned with an olive leaf. The earth was healing, and hope was rising again. When the ark finally came to rest on the mountains of Ararat, the floodwaters had receded, and Noah stepped out into a new world. God's covenant with Noah. Noah didn't just step out of the ark into a barren world. He stepped into a world where God had made a promise, his covenant. God promised that he would never again destroy the earth with a flood, and as a sign of that promise, he gave Noah the rainbow. God's covenant was a promise not just for Noah, but for all of humanity, a promise that his mercy would always be greater than his judgment. Lessons from Noah's Ark. Number 1, obedience and faith. Noah's story teaches us that when God speaks, we must listen. His commands may not always make sense, but like Noah, we are called to trust and obey. Obedience to God is not just about following instructions. It's about believing that God's plan is greater than our understanding. Number 2, judgment and mercy. The flood represents God's judgment on a world consumed by sin, but it also shows us his mercy. For those who obey, there is always a way out. Just like Noah, we are given the chance for salvation through faith and trust in God's promises. Number 3, the covenant promise. The rainbow is not just a beautiful sight after the rain. It is a reminder of God's unbreakable promise to His people. It is a symbol of His faithfulness, and it calls us to remember that His mercy and love will always prevail. Today, we have seen how one man's faith and obedience saved not only his family but all of creation. Noah's Ark is a story of judgment, mercy, and promise. It is a story that reminds us that God's plans are always for our good, even when we don't understand them. Just like Noah, we are called to listen, trust, and obey. Will we answer God's call with the same faith? Will we trust in His promises even in the storms of life? May we always remember that even in the most desperate of times, God is with us, guiding us and offering us a way of salvation. Just like Noah, we can trust Him to lead us to safety. Thank you for watching. Let us know the lesson learned from this video in the comments box and suggest the next video you want to see.